Okay, this section of notes is probably something new, and it is a little bit tricky because you probably haven't been taught how to solve absolute value equations before. So a couple things. First, remember what absolute value is. First of all, it's always positive, but really it's measuring a number's distance from 0. That's what's going to go on this line. So the absolute value of 5 is 5 because it's 5 spots away from 0 on a number line. Now, in order to solve absolute value equations, your first step is to isolate the absolute value expression. You have to get the stuff in between the lines by itself. Otherwise, the problem's not going to work. And then you have to remember two cases. For example, the absolute value of 5 is 5, but the absolute value of negative 5 is also 5. So we have to consider two different options, this guy and this guy, that both give us the same answer. The same thing is going to hold true for the problems that we're going to solve. Let's look. Here's how it works. Once you get the lines, or the absolute value by itself, like in number 1, you take the stuff inside and set up two problems. Either x equals 12, so the stuff inside equals the answer, or x equals negative 12. The stuff inside the lines equals the negative answer. And that's it for that problem. We're done. If you put 12 in the absolute value, you get 12 as your answer. If you put negative 12 in for the absolute value, you still get 12 as your answer. So we're done. Look at number 2. The first rule is to get the lines by itself. Notice that we have a 3 out front. That's really 3 times the absolute value of x plus 7. The opposite of times is to divide. So we're going to divide by 3 on both sides. The 3's cancel. We get the absolute value of x plus 7 equals 8. And now we set up two problems. We take the stuff inside the lines, x plus 7, and say that equals 8. Or the stuff inside the lines, x plus 7, equals negative 8. The negative answer. And those are your two options. Then just solve for x. To get the x by itself, you just subtract 7 on both sides. X equals 1. Subtract 7 over here. Or x equals negative 15. And both answers together are your answers to the absolute value problem. You need to include both. Let's try some more. Okay, number 3. We have to get the lines, or the absolute value, by itself. That means we have to get rid of minus 3. Well, to get rid of minus 3, just add 3 to both sides. The 3's will cancel. We get the absolute value of x equals 7. Then take the stuff inside, which in this case is just x, and say x equals 7, or x equals negative 7. Just make the answer negative. And these two answers together are our final answer for the problem. Either one of those numbers can get plugged in for x to give you the right answer. All right, number 4. We have the absolute value by itself already. X minus 2.5 is inside the lines, but the lines are by themselves. So we jump right into taking the stuff inside, x minus 2.5, and setting that equal to 8. Or the same stuff inside, x minus 2.5, and setting that equal to negative 8. Now just solve for x. To get rid of minus 2.5, you're going to add 2.5 to both sides. We'll do it on both equations. Then go ahead and solve. 2.5's cross out. You get x equals 10.5 or x equals negative 5.5. And those are your final answers. Those two options for x together make up your answer. Okay, number 5. We have to get the absolute value by itself, so we have to get rid of minus 8. The opposite of minus 8 is plus 8. The 8's cancel out on the right. Negative 8 plus 8 on the left is 0. So we get 0 equals the absolute value of x plus 2. Then we take the stuff inside, now that the lines are by themselves, and say, well, x plus 2 equals 0. The other option would be to write x plus 2 equals negative 0. But negative 0 is still 0, so we only get this one equation. Solve for x by subtracting 2 on both sides. You get x equals negative 2. All right. Number 6, we have to get the lines or the absolute value by itself, so we have to get rid of positive 3. To get rid of positive 3, subtract 3 on both sides. The 3's cancel out. You're left with the absolute value of x plus 4 equals negative 3. Right now, a red flag should be going off in your head. We know one of our most basic rules is that absolute value always gives you a positive answer. So the fact that this says the absolute value equals a negative number should have you concerned. That's impossible. Absolute value is never negative. So right off the bat, when we see this, we can write no solution, because that doesn't make any sense, that absolute value would be negative 3. All right, number 7. Let's see here. We have to get the lines by itself, so we have to get rid of this positive 2. We'll do that by subtracting 2 on both sides. 2's cancel out. We get negative absolute value 2x minus 5 equals 5. But the absolute value is still not by itself. There's this negative sign, and it's invisible negative 1. Negative 1 times the absolute value. So we'll divide by negative 1 to get rid of that. Now we're left with the absolute value of 2x minus 5 equals negative 5. Just like number 6, you should have a red flag going off. Absolute value cannot be a negative number. So again, we're going to write no solution. Okay, let's look at number 8. We have to get the absolute value by itself, so we have to get rid of negative 6. To do that, we'll add 6 to both sides. The 6's on the left cancel out, giving you the absolute value of x minus 4 equals 0. Then we take the stuff inside. X minus 4 equals 0. We should write or that same stuff inside, x minus 4 equals negative 0. But in this case, this is just the same equation because negative 0 is 0, so we don't have to write it. But if it was a different number and not 0, we'd want to write both. So let's just solve this guy by adding 4 to both sides. Your final answer is that x equals 4. All right, these notes match the 2.6 worksheet in your practice packet. So once you feel like you understand this, go ahead and move on to the 2.6 worksheet and do those problems. And then you'll be ready to move on to the word problem section, and you're almost finished the unit. Nice job.